Emotionally shattered after an on-again, off-again 5-year roller coaster with my ex, I can't shake her haunting words. I'm not ready for this. Now, even as I explore a new relationship, I dread repeating old mistakes. How do I finally let go? TLDR, I, a 42-year-old male, cannot forget my 42-year-old female ex after a relationship that lasted almost 5 years, which was an emotional roller coaster. I recognize that she is not good for me, and all logic advises me to let go, but I simply cannot. I also posted this in the toxic relationships section, but it is a very long text. Likely, not many were in the mood to read my story. English is not my primary language, so please excuse me if I am sometimes incoherent. Here we go. First, I need to clarify that I do not blame her for anything. I see myself as the antagonist. It is mostly my fault due to my inability to understand, actively listen, believe, and consider what she was telling me, along with my blindness to the red flags that were apparent. We are both 42, both will be 43 in August, and both have a 14-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl from our previous relationships. Background: 5 years ago when we first met, I had just come out of my 12-year relationship, and she had recently ended her 20-year marriage. In my case, I chose to end my relationship because my ex was abusive, impulsive, violent, manipulative, had an anxious attachment style, and exhibited extreme jealousy. In her case, the divorce came as a huge shock following an argument on WhatsApp with her husband 5 to 6 months later. Her husband's daughter was born from an affair with a colleague, and they moved into my girlfriend's old home. We met online on a dating site one late summer and quickly connected from our first real date. I can honestly say that I had never felt this level of attraction for anyone before. It was as if I had been searching for her since the beginning of the universe and had finally found my soulmate. Little did I know that she was unknowingly pushing all of my buttons, my savior complex and fear of abandonment, along with my experience of 12 years of dealing with anxious attachment while she was avoidant. All the adrenaline, heartbeats, and butterflies in my chest were actually my anxiety manifesting, overwhelming me like a freight train with wave after wave of endorphins when I was in her presence. I have never taken heavy drugs, but I believe that this is similar to the euphoria followed by depression. She clearly told me that she was not fine, not healed, and not ready to enter into another relationship. However, who was I to listen to her and believe her? I was projecting my vision of the perfect relationship and the ideal woman. I was eager to dive headfirst into this relationship. On our second date, she spent 3 days at my apartment while our children were with our ex-spouses. I would describe this experience as complete, fulfilling, perfect, and ultimately addictive. Since we had just met and her birthday was approaching, she had plans with her girlfriends to spend 2 days at one of their vacation homes. I can liken this to the first plunge of a roller coaster after climbing the hill. Following those 3 days of love, I experienced nearly 2 days of no contact, receiving only a few messages since she was in an area with a low signal. I felt abandoned and heartbroken. Imagine how damaged I was at that time. We shared the same custody schedule with our children, 1 week with us and 1 week with our ex-spouses. Fast forward 2 to 3 months. After a perfect vacation at the seaside, she suddenly told me over the phone that she was considering ending the relationship. I felt as if the sky was falling, and it took me 10 minutes to reach her apartment. I know to ask for her reasons. Well, her reason was that she began to love me, her exact words, and that this was not what she wanted. What a ride! I convinced her that it was not best for us to part ways and that we should see where life takes us, as I was madly in love with her. This pattern continued for a while. Sweet, memorable moments when I felt so loved, for example. This was my first relationship in which we took a bath together, and she washed my hair with such tenderness and sensuality, followed by extremely low moments, her battling depression, feeling hopeless, and reminiscing about how her ex ended everything she envisioned as her future. Then COVID-19 hit and I caught it from her. She recovered in 3 days while I struggled for 2 weeks. During the lockdown, which mandated that everyone stay in their apartments, I spent it alone at home. This was during Christmas, and it was then that I started online therapy as I hit a new low. This opened my eyes. The psychologist told me that I was trapped in this relationship, and my addiction to it was comparable to that of drugs. We had multiple sessions, and I began to understand my childhood fears and events that contributed to some of my behaviors. I had always acted logically based on reasoning, and he encouraged me to create a list of pros and cons for this relationship. The numbers did not match. After weighing the two sides, I believe any rational person would view the situation as more painful than fulfilling. However, I could never bring myself to move in a rational direction. Long story short, over the years, we experienced 2 or 3 breakups initiated by her because I was not what she wanted. She compared me to her ex-husband who cheated on her. He earned more money, was more cunning, and was able to give her multiple orgasms. While I very rarely managed to give her even one despite my genuine efforts, sexual encounters lasted about 30 minutes not including foreplay, but she deemed that insufficient. Additionally, she was very much against oral sex. Over these years, she only allowed me to perform it on her at most 5 or 6 times, and while I was her first, she only reciprocated a few times, which presented a significant psychological challenge for her. My intense love for her and desire to see her happy led to my frustration, which drove me to secretly use erection pills to prolong our encounters. By the way, I am of normal size and duration. Women had regular orgasms in my previous relationships. This sexual dynamic prompted me to attempt to overcompensate in other areas. I was extremely attentive, perhaps too much, as she said that I was not her father, often bringing gifts and flowers for various occasions, paying for vacations entirely on my own, and planning surprise city breaks and other activities. However, this was not adequate. My negative habits seemed to weigh heavier than my positive ones. I often forgot things as it was difficult for me to concentrate on multiple topics at once. For instance, if I were driving, there was a chance that I would not fully focus on what you were telling me, which might result in me forgetting your answer and asking the same question again that very day. I know that's irritating. Additionally, I was not generous enough. Apparently, presents and vacations did not suffice, as sometimes she expected me to pay for her car maintenance, though I already attended to her vehicle during checkups or her shopping, reminding me that she was unaware of the costs of food or maintenance during her marriage. I told her that I would be willing to help with that if we were married and living together, but since we were not, I felt it was unreasonable. By the way, I initiated several discussions about the prospect of moving in together into a larger apartment with our children, but she had three conditions. One, it had to be in her neighborhood so her daughter would be close to her friends. Two, the apartment needed to be either new or recently refurbished, as she despised moving into places that required renovations afterward. And three, I would have to pay for everything. I agreed and began working toward that. Another downside was that I did not properly educate my son. I never accepted this accusation as I spent a lot of time with him. We talked frequently, enjoyed our time together, and I cooked to provide him with good food. Everyone else who knows me tells me I am a great father except for her. Nevertheless, there is always room for improvement, right? By the way, when we vacationed with our kids, which we did several times, she always slept with her daughter while I slept with my son. We shared no more intimacy than an occasional kiss. Yes, I admit my son is not fond of her. I can partially blame her for this, and I will not force him to love her, but he has always been respectful and tolerant of her. I even had a few arguments with him over this, which I now regret. Another issue is that she is not a deep sleeper, and I occasionally snore, though not loudly enough to disturb her greatly. It is sufficient to keep her awake if she wakes up during the night. I tried numerous ways to remedy this, staying awake longer, sleeping face down, even using a mouthpiece that made my teeth sore, but most nights ended with me sleeping on the couch. Ultimately, what worked was her using earplugs, but that did not please her as she experienced some ear pain at one point. In any case, we did not sleep together all the time. Remember, we never lived together. At best, we would sleep together for 1 week, followed by a week with our children in each of our separate homes. As for her, I love her primarily because of how I feel when I am around her. She has the most beautiful smile, is intelligent, and possesses a calming presence that I cherish. Even during disputes, we always maintained our composure. She is a brunette, petite. I too am not tall, and this lifestyle arrangement makes me feel more masculine and has a beautifully proportioned body. Now for the downsides. She has a knack for identifying the negative qualities in others, holds traditional views. The man is the provider responsible for her happiness, and she is not very open in bed and is incredibly demanding and hard to please. You may ask, what does she provide? Well, I'm not entirely sure. She has her own job, car, and apartment. I would be content if she could offer me just her love. Additionally, she can sometimes be avoidant, which has always frustrated me, as she can become cold and her demeanor completely transforms. I barely recognize her. Where do we stand now? We have been separated since the beginning of the year. It was her decision. She told me she is unhappy in this relationship and that she tried for several years, stating that I have changed over the years. I honestly believe I have changed for the better, especially for my own sake. It was incredibly difficult for me to accept. I still do not think I have fully accepted this in my soul. We have still communicated during this time. We even had intimate encounters a few times as friends. However, I finally mustered the courage to inform her that I could not continue this way anymore, as it brought me considerable pain and resurfaced memories of our beginnings. In any case, we have spoken a few times as we needed to resolve certain matters. In the meantime, during these months, I began speaking with one of my neighbors across the street, a divorced 38-year-old woman with a 7-year-old son. Well, it was more than just conversation. We have spent several nights together, and we plan to take a short vacation next month, just the two of us. She is intelligent, attractive, and deeply interested in me. It has been a while since I felt cared for. It has been a while since a woman took the initiative, and I am not accustomed to this, so I am unsure how to feel. Oh, and I never disturb her with my snoring, and I have always managed to give her multiple orgasms. However, if I may draw a comparison, I feel that I am like my ex-girlfriend at the beginning of our relationship, and this new woman is akin to how I was at the start of that former relationship. God, I hope I am mistaken, as my ex and I share many similarities. I know I am not healed, but I wish, at least once in my life, to make a rational decision instead of sabotaging everything by thinking about my ex. I do not feel a strong attraction to her, but I hope that feelings will develop and that I will open my heart. On paper, she is everything I need and desire. This is indeed my dilemma. I am seeking advice. I still feel guilty as if I am cheating on both my ex and this new woman. I think about my ex daily. I am not healed and am still unable to open up significantly. I shared this with my new girlfriend, but I want to give it a chance because I feel that she is so different and logic tells me she is what I need. I understand the underlying mechanisms and traps, but I still find it incredibly difficult to be rational. My ex is a good woman, but she is so toxic for my way of being. How can I finally let go? Story 2. After a misunderstanding about sex while she was tipsy, my girlfriend revealed she was SE'd in the past. I'm trying not to let it affect us, but it's hard, she said. I thought I messed up again after mentioning my deceased sister. Now I'm left wondering, can we overcome this? Hello everyone, I hope it is acceptable to post this here. I apologize in advance for the length, as being concise is not one of my strengths so. Summary, my girlfriend expressed that she enjoys being woken up for intimacy. One night we both consumed alcohol, she more than I in the morning. I initiated physical intimacy when I thought she had sobered up slightly, but I did not progress beyond that. I apologized and we reconciled, but the past few days have been strange. I had a performance last night and I may have created some misunderstandings with my words today, which has led me to feel anxious all day because of it. I am trying to determine how much space is appropriate given the situation. I am a 31-year-old man and I have been in a long-distance relationship with a 28-year-old woman for several months now. We have known each other for a few years through mutual friends, but we had never interacted directly prior to a visit she made a few months ago with one of these friends. We immediately connected and it has truly been wonderful being with her. We share similar values and life goals, and we are aligned in our faith and in what we seek in a partner. We live only a short flight apart, allowing us to see each other relatively frequently, and each of those visits has been fantastic. However, the last weekend included a peculiar interaction that has carried over into this weekend. For context, when we initially started discussing intimacy, we explored each other's preferences, and she revealed that she enjoys being awakened for physical intimacy. Each time we have been intimate, it has begun with one of us waking the other for that purpose, and it has been great. However, last weekend we went out drinking together and we were both intoxicated, with her being more under the influence than I was. I only had 2 drinks, which is my limit for driving us home later that night. We returned home around 3:30 a.m. I managed to change into comfortable clothing, but she fell asleep, so I left her to rest and eventually fell asleep as well. She awakened around 6 a.m. because she asked me where her phone was, so I went to the car to retrieve it for her, helped her change into pajamas, and then lay back down with her. While we were cuddling, I felt her shift her body closer to mine, the usual way we initiate intimacy while cuddling, so I assumed this was an indication that she wanted to proceed. However, after some time, it seemed she was not interested, so I stopped and went back to sleep. We awoke a few hours later and went through our day as normally as possible, but about 4 hours before my flight home, she mentioned that she was uncomfortable with me attempting to seduce her while she was asleep and intoxicated right after we had returned from the bars. I was a bit taken aback but apologized to her immediately. I explained that I had misread the signal and had stopped as soon as I realized she was not interested, and clarified that our interaction occurred in the morning after I retrieved her phone and helped her change, not during the night. Regardless, I still felt sorry for misreading the situation and acknowledged that, although I thought she had sobered up somewhat, I should not initiate that behavior while there is a chance she is still under the influence. She accepted my apology and we hugged and cuddled before I departed. Before I left, she expressed her desire for me to visit again in 2 weeks. Nonetheless, I noticed that her interactions with me over the following week became somewhat colder. It has been troubling me all week knowing that I made her feel unsafe in any way, so the other day during a phone conversation, I apologized to her again. I assured her that I would never initiate anything after we had been drinking as a boundary for both of us. That is when she revealed that she had previously experienced sexual assault while intoxicated, explaining that my behavior had nothing to do with how she was feeling. She has been trying to return to the feelings she initially had for me, but felt as if something mental was blocking her. She admitted she could sense her emotional distance growing and did not want to treat me that way. She had meant to apologize as well, but whenever she saw me on FaceTime or heard my voice, she felt immediate annoyance and began acting unkindly. She expressed appreciation for my calm handling of the situation and noted it relieved some pressure on her. She is trying not to let her past affect her, and I told her I completely understood and that I would support her regardless. Interestingly, she mentioned she wished I had yelled at her or argued so that she could respond in kind instead of allowing her feelings to bottle up. Yet she recognized that this mentality is toxic and that we are both in this relationship because we value peace. Throughout the day, she FaceTimed me several more times, we continued to text, and she still referred to me as baby, which made me feel as though things were improving. Now I find myself somewhat perplexed. For further context, I am a part-time musician who began pursuing music after enduring a very difficult breakup from an 8-year relationship with someone who has borderline personality disorder and was quite emotionally abusive. I took a 2.5-year break from dating to focus on myself, engage in therapy, work on my fitness, and explore hobbies. Additionally, my oldest sister, with whom I was extremely close, passed away unexpectedly last month. As a result, I decided to take a break from music for a time because I did not feel passionate about it anymore. I turned down about 4 or 5 gigs this past month because I was not in the right headspace. However, last night I had a performance that went splendidly. I texted my girlfriend this morning as I usually do, and she inquired about how it went. I told her it was wonderful. A couple of male friends surprised me at the gig, bought me a drink, and last night was the first time in a while that I felt like my true self again. In hindsight, I realize I could have expressed that differently. Initially, after I shared how well the gig went, she left me on read. About half an hour later, she texted back sarcastically, remarking that she too got drunk the previous night and felt like her true self, suggesting I should marry my friends if they make me feel that way since I have been with her for the past few months. She indicated that she felt it was a low blow for me to say that I finally felt like myself after she had been with me for several months. I attempted to explain that I did not intend for it to be interpreted that way. I simply meant that it had been a considerable time since I engaged in my hobby, which deeply connects me to myself. Here is where I believe I made a mistake. I mentioned that I had not done this since my sister passed away, and she responded by asking why I even brought up my sister, stating she would not argue with me after that. I tried to clarify that I was not using it as an excuse to dismiss her feelings, but merely as a reference to the last time I performed live music. I told her I cherish how I feel when we are together, and offered a profuse apology for the way in which I expressed myself led to a misunderstanding. During our earlier conversation on Friday when I apologized regarding the intimacy issue while she was asleep, she had told me she was accustomed to having someone argue and fight with her, so it was indeed refreshing for her to experience my calm approach. Naturally, I maintained that calm demeanor while she was upset today. She was meant to attend a concert today, and I encouraged her to enjoy herself, reiterating that I care deeply about her and will be here when she is ready to speak with me again. I find myself struggling with this situation because, in my previous relationship, my ex would frequently use disagreements as a pretext to flaunt other men in my face or to use them against me later. Ultimately, that relationship ended with her infidelity, so I am trying my best not to let the past taint this current relationship. I have been trying to keep myself occupied all day and haven't texted my girlfriend to give her space. I am uncertain how much space is appropriate, as I would like for us to communicate about this tonight so that neither of us goes to bed upset over something I believe can be resolved through conversation and mutual understanding. When issues like this arise, I find it challenging to eat because my fight-or-flight response activates, but I am striving to remain calm and composed. I genuinely want to determine the healthiest way to navigate this situation because I truly care for this woman and see significant potential for a healthy relationship. I realize this is likely just a temporary bump in the road, and my mind is presently racing. I always feel like I am making mistakes in some fashion, and I am uncertain about what I can improve. While we have had minor disagreements in the past, never any arguments, she has taken accountability well, as have I. We consistently apologize to one another and move forward. Nevertheless, my past triggers are causing alarm bells to ring in my mind, making this situation seem larger than it may be. I feel as though I am still working through some profound trust issues, but I attempt to recognize that everyone is different and trust that she would not treat me as my ex did, especially as she has also experienced infidelity in all of her previous relationships. However, I never anticipated that emotions could resurface in a brand new relationship. I find myself worrying that she will be dancing with other men or will betray my trust and return with that news, and I do not know how to stop myself from spiraling into these thoughts. Therefore, I felt the need to express everything here to avoid overwhelming her with my thoughts when we do speak. Additionally, I would appreciate any advice regarding this situation, as I genuinely wish to rectify any issues I may have contributed to and continue nurturing our relationship. My question is, could I have handled this situation differently? With all the self-improvement I have undertaken, how can I prevent my past triggers from impacting my daily life? I do not want to end our relationship over this, as I believe we can work on these issues together and grow stronger.